Okay, guys, so I'm about to introduce him on stage. Can you remember how you were clapping for me and I was smiling like Miss World coming on stage? So we need you to clap and scream. I'm going to scream, say his name, but then he has to feel the energy of this room. So guys, are we ready? We don't sound like we're ready. Are we ready? Okay, so warm round of applause for Huishan Zhang.
Yeah.
So as you can see, the crowd is really excited to have you. So
Thank
welcome
you.
to Lagos.
Thank you very much.
Have you been finding it? Have you been finding Lagos so far?
Great. Yeah, it's
Great.
quite hot, but nice.
Yes. So what did you have in mind when you decided to launch your label?
I think it's like when you design something beautiful, it's a freedom of expression of what you're thinking at the moment. I think it's really the moment is capture everything. I think it's when you design, you're thinking about the woman in the dress, and you're thinking about the culture blend like you want to express in your own way. So somehow it's a very natural process. Yeah.
So it's a natural process. It's what you think about your customer, how you want to dress your customer. That's
Exactly. I mean, once you like decide you want to be a designer, I think this is a job that you're thinking you're gonna literally keep doing for quite a long time. It's something that has to be really, you can feel it, and then it's something that you can feel, you make another people also feel the same as well. So it's really creating a connection between you and your audience. Yeah.
so. As you guys know, well, I mentioned in the beginning, Huishan is actually born in China. Then he went to school in New Zealand. Then he was in Paris.
Yeah.
And then he went to school in Central
St.
Martin in London. So after you've been to all these places, why did you decide to have your flagship in London?
I think London is a special city. Obviously, go to London because of the dream. When you were a student, you're thinking all the big designers like McQueen, Galliano. At the time, you feel you want to be one of them, and you want to study fashion in London because it's good. And pretty much I followed my dream, go to London, studied. After that, I build a community of my own, my friends. So feel is like already so attached to the city, and London has become a home from China. So therefore, it's very natural to actually decide to build a career, stay there, and then obviously my first flagship is really proudly, in London as well. Yeah.
So when you started, did you feel like you had to leave China to make it in fashion, to go to New Zealand or Paris or London? Do you feel if you had stayed in China, you would still be as successful as you are now?
Yeah, there's, not only me, it's like the Chinese designer is already like a wave in the world of fashion. Like there's not only me in the West, also there's quite a lot of Chinese designers stay in China, grow in China, and made their name as well. I think it's the whole point of me actually going overseas at the time is just, thinking back, almost 10 or 18 years ago, that there's not much of things that you can do at the time in China. That I cannot really learn fashion design at the time. People have the concept of fashion design is quite vague. So somehow, just naturally that I have the opportunity to come overseas, and then I didn't really even realize I can do in fashion design until I literally see that experience, and then I fall in love. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So Huishan is all about culture. And one thing the Chinese and African people have in common is culture. We're very big on culture. As you can see from my outfit, culture. You can see a couple of ladies in the audience as well. Rocking Ankara, Adire. So culture is really big for us. Do you feel that designers that have rich cultural experiences have a different approach to design? And do you think their designs are also more globally appealing?
Yeah, I think we live in a cultural society, whether you are in the UK, Nigeria, or China. I think, somehow people appreciate each other's difference, also accept each other's difference. I think for me, I use the Chinese culture as a bridge to communicate with my audience. They feel very different because the first time maybe in the fashion world, they hear a designer, telling them a story from native Chinese point of view rather than a Western designer, literally inspired by Chinese
Controlling the
culture.
narrative
Exactly.
in Chinese design.
Yeah, and also it's all about the huge appreciation of who you are, what do you believe, where you come from. I think that's really the question you keep asking yourself. I think also that's gonna be the one that the question actually help you to go through all the difficult time as well. I think for this case, I'm really appreciative of my own Chinese culture. It gave me a lot, especially from design point of view. It's enriched of those beautiful craftsmanship and culture, and which I literally grew up from. So I think from that point, feel like using my own culture blended into a modern design is very, natural process.
So another thing, we all know about made in China. So when we think about made in China, especially here in Africa or Nigeria, we think about the mass-produced items, so affordable or cheap clothing that you can buy en masse. And you think about sweatshops, and then you're one of the Chinese designers that are trying to change the narrative and talk about made in China luxury. So could you just kind of explain to us what that means, made in China luxury?
I think it's just like misconception of what made in China stand for. I think for certain time at the beginning, people come to China, they want to produce cheaper, more accessible goods for the world, which is understandable. Therefore, the quality may be compromised in certain way because of the marketing, etc. But, for me, when I look at what made in China, obviously I come from China. I always see things differently because I'm there. I experience everything. I know what's good about China. It's not only about those, mass product. It's also about showing your culture, and then literally representing your heritage. So I literally, from that point, I, have this concept which actually built around my brand is really representing another side of what made in China. It's because it's so diverse. You cannot really pigeonhole made in China to one specific product. I think it's really, it's also about timing. It's like basically my brand growing up also with the fast development of my own country's economic boom. Also, it's about the culture, like recognition of your own. So I think it's really launching the brand in the right time, and then really appreciated by people who are sharing the same dream as me. Like either from the West, people want to see another side of China, or from China, people want to represent another side of China. So I think among the way, we get a lot of support by pushing this idea through, because even at the time, when you're launching an idea which is not even exist, it's very tough. It's not like we have the factory, the atelier to support us. We don't. We literally want to build everything from scratch to actually, find our own way to representing our rich culture. Yeah.
There are lots of similarities in what you just kind of described to us here in Nigeria and here in Africa, and how we have to own the narrative and tell our stories through clothes instead of the Western view
Exactly.
of what African or Nigerian should
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice. So when Huishan started his career, one of his mentors was Angelica Chong. She's the editor-in-chief of Vogue China. She's been there for 15 years, a really long time. And she's this powerhouse in fashion in Asia. So having her as a mentor, did he kind of catapult your career? Did that kind of help you to just grow way faster, or any other advantages having that kind of mentor had to your business?
I think, Angelica actually, I've been appointed by Vogue for, to be editor-in-chief of Vogue China 15 years ago. Then when China actually don't really have, much of fashion magazine. So for her to actually sit on this idea of having the first ever Vogue China is very pioneer, also revolutionary for China. If you're thinking back 15 years ago, China never be considered as one of the most important luxury market in the world. Now everybody knows, right? So thinking back 15 years when she started, everything has to be set up from scratch. So it's when, I set up my business, like 7 years ago, where I literally have this made in China brand that's actually trying to, representing China in another angle. So pretty much, the way that we met each other, exchanged the idea. Obviously, she's a pioneer not only for me, to champion, not only champion me, also many another Chinese designers will really, have this whole idea of appreciate the culture and then really building something together. It's really creating a fashion community, representing China in the stage of, in the world stage. I think it's really come very natural. And obviously, Angelica's support is being incredible. And, she's very experienced. She gave me lots of mentorship as well, helped me a lot. I think it's really, we understand, together, she supported lots of Chinese designers together with me. We're creating a force together. It's joint force always
So
much
the
more
new
stronger.
Chinese fashion force.
Yeah, it's always much stronger. I think it's for that case, I'm really appreciate with all the support. Also together with my peers, like with all the people, have the same dream as me, want to be Chinese designer representing another side of China. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So you're stocked in different places in the world, Selfridges, Browns. So we can see Huishan Zhang's collection in Europe, Asia, America. So when is the Huishan brand coming to Nigeria or Africa?
No, I wish soon. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's my first time here from yesterday. So, but that's why we want to really start in the step. You really understand the market, the culture. I want to experience more. I mean, it's such a fascinating place that I want to know more about it. Yeah.
So do you have a lot of Nigerian customers? Lots of Nigerian women come in to your store, pick up outfits, dresses?
Yeah, the beauty have your own store, like your own flagship, is really to have a diverse, direct connection with your clients. They can come from, whatever places, like Middle Eastern, Nigeria, and then I really appreciate for them to actually appreciate unique design, appreciate craftsmanship. So we do have quite few, which I really that's the inspiration. That's why I come to your city to experience the culture here. Yeah.
So another thing most of aspiring designers wanted to know, I kind of spoke to a couple of aspiring designers, is how do you create a visual identity? So once I see a Huishan Zhang dress today and I see one 20 years down the line, I'm like, that's Huishan. So how do you create that brand identity?
I think it's about something to create something that timeless. For us, there's always the image that we're trying to push. It's like being inspired by Audrey Hepburn, all those kind of muse that's representing like the glamour of the woman. So I think for this case, we can pick up some elements and really putting them together. And I really want my pieces to be, like literally remain relevant, whether now or later. So for this case, we put a lot of kind of thought into how to construct the garment, and then especially, making them really last long. Yeah.
So another thing is how to build brand loyalty. Like the Huishan Zhang woman keeps coming back to keep buying pieces from you. How do you build brand loyalty?
I think it's like consistent conversation. When you have a flagship store, that when they come, we have great clientele to really look after them. Not understand what they need. I do have lots of clients sharing, their experience with me, either with our pieces or another designer's pieces, so we kind of understand each other very well. I think that's really the key to become success in that world, because your customer is always something that's gonna inspire you for the next. So I think it's really beautiful connection between you and your customer. Yeah.
So we know when you launch products, you do London Fashion Week every year. So you do 2 seasons, autumn, winter, spring, summer.
Yeah.
Apart from launching collections during the fashion week, do you also do off-season drops like an exclusive collection, off-seasons, not any of the London Fashion Week? Do you ever release products?
Yeah, we creating small capsule with, our, close partners, like to actually to either celebrating a launch with them or celebrating special occasion. I think it's, we did, last year we did something with Selfridges during the summertime so it was very successful. We have our own pop-up shop and then we have something really special with them. So it's something always very interesting. Also, like as a designer, it's like a thing that you can have another fun. I feel it's more fun time than, really thinking of more commercial. It's something that, you know the brief very well, you know the customer very well. You just want to design something quite special for them. Yeah.
So another thing is, you mentioned when you started in China, there wasn't really fashion weeks and fashion was a bit vague in China. We kind of are, I know we have fashion weeks here, but we're also newcomers in the fashion world. We're not a fashion city like New York or Milan. So what advice would you give Africans here in trying to break into the international market or try to use culture as a way to propel their designs and showcase to the world?
Yeah, I think that's is something that is a big subject to talk about it because you can cut in this in many different angles. But for one thing I can share with my experience is like when I started at the time, pretty much China just started to be open. So like I think at the time at that stage everybody pretty much dressed the same. So fashion is as a word people don't really understand because people didn't really experience. So we're just very lucky China has become a very big and also fast developing country, and literally we've been really challenging ourselves and then moving forward really, really fast. I think, for that case, Nigeria has a much bigger advantage because you all elaborated, you have different dressing code, you all celebrating different culture here already. And also you even have, fashion week, even you all just started. I think it's already in a very advanced stage in that way. And I feel, for me, it's like, once you believe a dream, no matter what, your environment, whether it seems to be supporting you or not, I think it's really for you to keep consistently to push the idea through. You always find a way. When I first started, I feel very difficult to find a supplier to supporting idea because, as you say, everybody has a mass production line, So to actually produce small quantity, like high-end quantity, high-end product, they don't really experience with that. Also fabric sourcing, we literally conquered a lot to actually challenging to build up our own atelier. It was started with only me and my aunt, actually. We're sewing our first collection together. Yeah. And then sold to Bronx, the one of the most inspirational store, And then gradually we grew. We have a flagship. We have a team in London. We have around 30 people already in China to really pushing this idea through. So I think no matter what, you just have to believe in yourself and then always trying to find a way. You're never gonna be ready. You just have to make sure you're prepared for the next stage. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys all heard, but I just thought that was incredible. His first collection, it was him and his aunts that sold it. It's like, that is amazing. 2 people, a whole collection, and they sold it to Browns. That is very amazing.
Thank you.
So apart from that, do you have any other advice to young designers going forward?
I think one of my kind of biggest kind of benefit from going through is the all the difficulties. Really prepare yourself in a way that fashion is a big subject. If from outsider people only thinking fashion is one thing,
Glamorous.
glamour, but they never understand when everybody is sleeping, you literally still sewing your product or doing your design or contacting your buyer for. So I think it's really something that you have to prepare and also learn as much as possible. I'm a fashion designer, but I did learn when I was in New Zealand. I had a really great course to, prepared me for, knowing how to sew a dress, a jacket, a tailored dress. Basically, it's a big subject that you have to learn pattern cutting yourself. It's depending which area you want to be most strong, also develop yourself. I did internship in many different places, and I even literally did an internship at one of the Chinese factory actually to just learn how the production actually gonna run through, to be able to prepare for the future of I think it's really have your own plan. If you want to become a designer, have your own brand, you literally have to brainstorm what actually may be needed for you to build up the skill. Because at the end of the day, you can mostly relate to yourself and then, convince yourself to believe your dream first and then convince another person to join force with you to push through. Yeah.
So when Huishan was in masters, when he was studying for his master's degree in pattern making, Delphina Knott, who's the daughter of LVMH founder, approached you for a job at Dior. So Huishan, before he had graduated, actually had a job at Dior Couture.
Yeah, so basically it's an award. So Dauphin came to Central Saint Martin at the time, and then she just, took over Dior. So she came, she set up a design award, like talent scouting. So I was very lucky. I won the award. So I went back with her to literally did an internship and worked at Dior. So I was very lucky that got the experience because it's one of the brand that you could go to Paris for. So and I also very lucky I was be able to work at the haute couture atelier because for me, I feel I'm very technical. Based designer. I love design. I love pattern cutting. I love, sewing. So obviously, to go to the couture atelier to really open your horizon, to really see what actually really about. Yeah.
So what drives your creativity? So I understand you're very technical, but for you to have won the award with a lot of other people, obviously your creativity was shining through. So what drives your creativity?
At the time, it's really, the project is very specific. You design something for Christian Dior. When I was in St. Martin, I also, as a young student, you don't want to kind of pigeonhole yourself into one particular category of design. So I tried my style, like maybe more like streetwear, sometimes more. So it kind of through different projects, I want to do different things. And then this Dior project come through, literally helped me put all my acknowledgement, all the things I believed into one. So pretty much you step into the shoes of what Dior woman would love to buy, want to wear. So kind of like linked, the whole Dior experience linked very closely to my, what I believe later on. So I think it's a turning point. Also, it's a point that I finally realized what kind of product I want to create, what kind of woman I want to design for as well. Yeah.
So culture is something you speak about very passionately about. Every time I hear about Huishan Zhang or I read anything about you, you keep talking about culture and how culture has influenced you and influenced your brand. So could you just kind of explain to us, especially for people who want to use culture, how do you infuse it into your brand? I know it goes past design, past branding, but just we want to know how much you infuse into your brand and how.
I think for me, it's all about understanding the culture. It's not only putting things on the surface. I think that's very important because, there's already exist maybe brand already doing this such very obvious Chinese symbolism kind of design already. I'm not really seeing, I'm not appreciative of that. It's just like, for me, I want to, do something different. So I always like to use Chinese culture in a very toned down way. So it's almost like, understanding it and then really infuse it into the detail of the design. So that's always the subtleness of Huishan Zhang pieces. Also, that's what I believe I can create in this kind of communication with my client. They want something really understated, luxury, really, like putting lots of thought into detailing. Really, it's almost like if you are a chef cooking a dish. I rather to use my Chinese culture as a seasoning. As a seasoning that you
Seasoning to the main
yeah,
meal.
but you need those because then it can taste good, But it's not really on top of the things. After you eat that, you don't enjoy the rest of them. So for me, I always like to understand in that way, so it's easier. So always like to make sure, that's especially from your native eye. That's the beauty of a native designer using their culture, because you are the only person who can understand it, better than anybody else. Yeah.
So we also want this class to be very, very interactive. So we're also going to be taking questions for Huishan to answer. So we have ushers who probably go around with mics. So if you want to ask a question, you could raise up your hand, so we can just make this as interactive as possible as well. Okay, we have one person.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
The question, I'm sorry, my voice is cracked. The question I want to ask is that we were told you did your master's in patterning. What is the application of patterning into fashion? And what is the importance and essence of patterning in fashion?
A pattern
So what's the importance of pattern making in fashion and in your brand as well?
Yeah, I think pattern cutting, obviously, if you're thinking fashion is a person, you have the skeleton, the flesh, and also the soul. I think pattern cutting is really the skeleton. It's really, really important because, you have to, after all, you're building a product, it has to be, understand the woman's body and really, also put your own signature. You can, through pattern cutting, you can change the proportion, to be different from another brand. Your waistline can be higher or lower. You have different, you do have freedom to really creating a signature of your own pattern and your own skeleton. I think, to understand the basic construction, whether you're leading a team or doing it yourself, actually is going to be really, really helpful. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, we have someone in the back. Well, we have two people.
No.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Sorry, I want to know, did your background actually had anything to your... Actually, you went to study far away from your own country. Some people don't have that access. Can you tell us whether your background actually had to your success?
So he's asking if your background added to your success, because you went to school from China, and he's saying some people don't have that opportunity to leave their country to further their education and experience, and if your background actually helped with your success.
I think, when I actually studied in China, I didn't really study fashion design. I pretty much, when I left China, I was only a high school student. So technically, at that point, I don't even know what I want to study or learn. So fashion is just comes when you go study overseas, and then literally come across the idea that I finalized that I really, really want to do.
So it's
that.
kind of like
Yeah.
your experiences, just going through the experiences that kind of made you want to be a fashion designer.
Yeah, and also it's really something that you could actually, even in New Zealand, I didn't really, study that whole part of fashion design. I was doing more fine art, so I didn't really study fashion. So I kind of studied fashion pretty much myself first to actually be able to understand the whole thing. Because at the time, for me, the idea of fashion design is very vague. It's thinking of coming out from China, not knowing about the world that much at that point. So, I think it's really the passion gonna drive you, no matter whether you are, have opportunities to learn in the overseas or not. It's really, you have internet, you can get access. I still remember when I applied Central St. Martin at the time, it's start-up internet. I have to literally find Central St. Martin's contact and then called from New Zealand all the way to ask how the procedure, because nobody know. I literally went to St. Martin. I was the only Chinese nationality student there. Before me there was 2 people study, but I only know them later on after, because they all worked for Vogue China. So when Angelica starting to employ people, so it's like there's not many people actually could lead me to whatever way. It's all about the passion really drove me to be discovering the opportunity and learn what I want to learn as well. Yeah.
So, okay, yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Yudi,
Hi.
and I wanted
Hi,
to know.
Yudi.
Thank you. I want to know how you were able to raise the money for your very first collection, and what platform you used to display it and showcase it for people to be aware about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I was lucky. My parents obviously sponsored me for my first collection, because I'm pretty much at that point just like graduate from Central St. Martin. I still remember, I thought, okay, maybe it's not that hard. You go to Paris, maybe, because I was already in the Europe, so you kind of thinking you should go to Paris to your showroom. So somehow I've managed to find a showroom, want to stock me there. Still remember the first season I went in, 2 big suitcases, traveled by myself. That's like, almost 8 years ago. At the time, there's no, Uber or anything. Basically, you have to find a taxi from the street, so it was very tough. So I went there. The first season, actually, I was thinking, okay, I take a chance. People maybe like it. Sadly, lots of people came and they said, oh, well, we like your product a lot, but, we are in the luxury, market, so, but we don't really thinking your client gonna be appreciate what, your product actually come from China. They won't associate with luxury. So even your product is beautiful, but we might not be able to stock you. I still even remember one of the, vendors was so kind to me, saying, maybe we can do something. Maybe, maybe we can try to change the country of origins. Maybe I can find you, you have beautiful design. Maybe I find you somewhere in Italy can produce your goods. Then I said, obviously that's against what I believe. I think that's the whole point I want to create in this brand. Is really made in China luxury. So obviously I thank them for their kindness of offering, but I think obviously you can find a way to succeed. So I packed myself, without any order back to London. I still remember on that day, packed myself going out. It was pouring rain. Like the rain, it just not stop. And then I cannot find a taxi because the French taxi driver don't want to drive somebody who has a 2 big, huge suitcases and already from head to toe wet. I want to go to the train station because it's chock blocked. So I'll be able to manage to walk all the way from my showroom to Gare du Nord to take Eurostar back to London. At that point, I think, okay, I was very naive. I was thinking to myself, okay, maybe that's the worst. So everything gonna be better. So I think it's really keep a positive energy, positive thinking is really, really important. And then went back, didn't really have any order. And then waited for 2 months, and all of a sudden I got a call from Bronze, the store that I always dreamed about. Bronze is the first store actually stocked Alexander McQueen, Jose Chalayan, Galliano. So this, to be able to get to Bronze at the time is really, really the biggest dream ever. So I got a call from Mrs. B, the owner of Bronze, and then saying she wanted to meet me. I was like, is that real? So from that point, you kind of feel, okay, maybe something is coming. That's why, I said my aunt and, and I sold the whole collection because we didn't prepare. After, when you're doing fashion week, you have certain time to get order, produce it, get your fabric sourced, and then you can get delivered. This is already 2 months after the fashion week. It's already for another brand, they're already starting to deliver. So there's not really a way to sorting everything out, but you take your chances because it's coming to you. So I think it's really something that you have to believe and really find your own way to do that. Yeah.
Okay. So we have some questions in front here.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, sorry, we can't hear you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Please, I want to ask Zhang 2 questions. The first one is, as a pattern drafter, as you are, I learned that you have to be, anything you want to sew, you have to draft on paper first, that is the right process. As a mogul you are right now, do you still draft on papers?
So she's asking that for pattern making, you first start
Okay.
drafting on paper.
Yeah.
Now that you're such an expert, do you still draft on paper before you go into the process?
I think it's a combination of both. You do draping and, flat pattern draft. So it's always complement to each other. I don't believe one way is better than another. I think the best way is really mixing them together. You're gonna understand the body, and also you're gonna understand from the body how to make it flat, because at the end of the day, they have to cut flat. Your either you yourself or your people who cut in your fabric, they are actually you have to make sure it's a flat pattern. So I think using a combination of both is really, really important.
Okay, my second question, you've been in business for a while now. So I want to ask, what is your biggest mistake so far? And how have you come to overcome it? Thank you.
Your biggest mistake so far in your career, in your fashion career, what's been your biggest mistake so far?
You're a fashion designer. I think, you make a biggest mistake every minute. So the whole point is just don't be afraid of it. It's like you have to make a mistake, otherwise you won't learn. Don't, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Huishan.
Time is like 3 minutes, so we're just gonna take 2 more questions.
Okay.
Someone already has the mic, and
Yes.
then afterwards we're coming to the front here.
Okay, hi. I would like to know if you have a muse and how important it is for a fashion designer to have a muse.
If you have a muse,
Okay.
and how important it is for a fashion designer to have a muse.
Yeah, I think Muse is important. It's really a perfect version of your dream. I think it's not only for your customer, it's also for yourself. It's a mirror of yourself, but in a much perfect version. I think it's like you always people has self-obsession. They love themselves. That's why they want to become beautiful. So I think it's really the whole idea of creating a perfect version. But obviously in reality you have different version. But at least you have one that you truly believe, and then one that you can be truly inspired by that created image of yourself as well. Yeah.
But do you have a muse? Does Huishan Zhang have a muse?
Yeah, I do. It's really the woman I design for. It's the woman who have this confident, the elegant, very cultured. That's always the woman inspire me. When it can be anybody. It's like I'm pretty much inspired by them a lot. They give me so much. It can be this person I just talked to. I feel, oh my God, I want to be her this moment. So I think that's the muse to me. That's the muse that keep inspiring me even today. Yeah.
Fantastic. So we have one more question. Where's our mic? Okay.
Thank you, Huishan. So if I understand very well, you're based in London. How important is it for you to, as a Chinese designer, to be based in London? And do you think that if you stayed in, say, Beijing or Shanghai, you'd have achieved the same level of global success as you have today?
Yeah, I think, for For me, I'm just naturally based in London because I live in London for so long already. And then London gave me a lot. It's a diversity city. It's a city of mixing pot of culture. I think, we see, Africa culture there. We see Arabic culture, Chinese culture. I think culture is really something I feel appreciate, in London. As I said, there's already, not only me, there's already another Chinese designer. Also, either from the West, also, in China still, they already make their wave. So together we actually make a much stronger wave. So I think where you are, where you decide to actually base your, career, is not that important. It's really if your dream gonna lead you to that place. Thank you.
Oh, guys, it's time up.
Thank
Time's
you.
up, but thank you so much.
Sorry.
Thank you, Huishan.
Thank you so much
for
having
answering
me.
all our questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you very
all.
much. And the audience has been perfect as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.